Alright, I already talked about this on a community post, but I figured I'd also just make it into a video, so that way I'm just able to get my thoughts across clearer. The whole of The Amazing Digital Circus episode 8 just felt rushed. It just felt rushed. I don't know any other way to put it. The thing felt rushed, it really did. And along with that, a lot of the dialogue in the episode just felt forced. For example, there was this one intro sequence at the start of the episode, not the first one where, it had, the shapes and stuff, but, the one where everyone was, sitting on the couches, talking with each other. I don't really know the best word to describe how I feel about it, but it didn't feel as realistic as it should. It felt almost impossible to sympathize with any of the characters talking. And, for a series like The Amazing Digital Circus, where characters are one of the most important things in the series, that was kind of a letdown that you weren't really able to sympathize with any of the characters during this very serious conversation. The only character in that specific scene that I almost got close to sympathizing with was Zubul, but that's probably just because of how the voice actor executed her lines. But that whole scene just felt like a mess. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that one scene from Sing. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where, all of the, contestants or whatever talked like the host guy. It had the same vibe as that. They were trying to get you to sympathize with the characters, but you just couldn't. You just couldn't at all. And then there's the scene where Kane just starts singing. I understand that they were trying to get it across that, hey, Kane's kind of going insane here. He feels like he's failing at his only purpose, and he's trying his best to latch onto the only things he has. But it just feels like there could have been a better way to visualize that instead of a song. When I heard him start singing, I actively groaned. I could not sit through it all. I had to skip through some parts. It felt very out of place, and it felt like a villain song from a kid's movie. And, I know that this show is supposed to kind of take inspiration from those kinds of media, kids media, since this takes place in a game made for kids. But I really think they could have done it better. Maybe playing with the visuals or the audio while he's speaking normally, instead of him just breaking out into song. I really feel like the whole song just fell out of place. I really don't know what else to say about it. Take the events of the first half of episode 1, where, they have that intro sequence. Kane has his little spiel to himself. The group talks to each other. And, Kane has his little song, and then they go on the adventure. And then, the episode ends a little after they have that first adventure. They, have a little talk, and then the episode ends, and then the next episode starts. It could be, 2 or 3 days later, and then the rest of the events of episode 8 happened there. And I don't know, like, I might be wrong, but I really feel like the extra time with the specific parts would have done a lot for the episode as a whole. Like, I know people might have been upset by the cliffhanger, but I don't know. I really, really feel like this whole thing could have been executed better. And also, I really don't like how they, handled the Kinger bucket scene. Like, not with Kinger himself, but rather how people were talking to Kinger. Like, just when he, gains awareness, Pomni's like, hi, and then he's like, hi, and then she's like, what do you know about Kane? I really feel like they could have stretched that out a bit more. 'Cause, that whole thing felt really awkward. Pomni talking to Kinger, not Kinger talking to Pomni. Personally, I think Kinger's talking to Pomni was completely fine, but Pomni's talking to Kinger, I feel like that could have been revised a bit. Just a gradual buildup of stuff before she asks that question could have made it a lot less awkward and sudden and out of place for the viewer. And also, I might need to rewatch this specific part of the episode to get clarification on this, but I don't really understand how deleting the module that he's recoding Kane's original code in would delete Kane himself. Wouldn't that essentially just bring Kane back to normal since none of the changes were, saved into him? I don't know. Again, I need to rewatch the episode. Also, this isn't really a problem. I know it's just a difference in, the models they're working with and the settings on those models, but, Zubal's eyes were very inconsistent. It would be scene 1, Zubal has big eyes. Scene 2, Zubal has normal-sized eyes. Scene 3, they're back to big, okay. Scene 4, normal eyes again. The whole thing felt like how we initially felt watching episode 7 blind when it first came out, before the twist. So much information was being thrown at us, and it was happening in such a short amount of time, and we didn't really have time to process all of what was being said. And, for episode 7, that was excusable since it was an adventure and it was part of a twist. And, it was supposed to be that way. But for episode 8, where this whole thing isn't part of one big adventure that just stops at the end, and this is, actual organic interactions between the characters that aren't supposed to seem scripted. Maybe they did it in episode 8 to build uncertainty. Maybe they did it in episode 8 to reflect how so many things were happening between the characters and how they were confused too, but I don't know. I just really feel like it would have done way better if they just ditched the concept of throwing 10 gazillion pounds of information at our face at once, and instead decided to go for something slower. I know the audience that they're trying to appeal to, really likes things that are fast-paced. They really like those high-stakes, fast-paced episodes that constantly have new information, and it gets to a point where it's overstimulating. But I feel like this series needs something that isn't that. It needs something slower. It needs something handled with more care. Especially right now in the series when we're in a more serious part and we're not having silly, funny, goofy adventures. Ha 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 ha. And again, we're having actual organic, quote-unquote, unscripted interactions between the characters. We all know it's scripted, but I'm just saying unscripted since it's not scripted by Kane. I really feel like for episode 9, I really hope they give it more time, because we don't need another fast-paced, overstimulated mess of an episode that constantly throws information at us without giving us the proper time to process it. Especially now that Kane is gone, or, well, quote-unquote gone, I guess I'd say, since we don't really know the fate of him yet, since there's always the potential for a plot twist. But, like, yeah, can we please get a slower episode for once? Please? I beg of you. Give the series a bit more care. Give it some time to shine. Please? I beg of you. But, like, yeah, some good things to note about the episode, I guess I'd say, I liked Ragatha's interactions during that one flashback. I liked most of Kinger's dialogue. I liked some of Zubal's dialogue. The soundtrack was alright. Let me think. The animation was good. I liked how they reused Kane's office and showed that it's used for more than just that one singular adventure. I liked how they gave us a bit more insight on how Kane works, and kind of verified that Kinger did, in fact, work on Kane. Like, he wasn't, like, the head guy, but he still worked on him. I liked how they gave some other areas in the circus some time to shine, since we barely see anyone go around there. But yeah, I really hope that they do better in the last episode, especially now that Kane's gone, so things don't have to be so fast-paced all the time. Yeah, I know it's kind of a feeble hope to have, especially since the studio likes making fast-paced thingy-mabobs, but I still really hope they improve and end the series off with something good to look back on. By the way, this was unscripted and made very early in the morning, so